My name's Nick Hutchinson. I'm Head of Solution Consulting at Lumess. So for those of you that don't know Lumess, we provide talent acquisition and talent management software. I'm sure most people here do know us. I've worked in the recruitment industry for around about 20 years now, working as a recruiter, managing recruitment teams, both in-house and agency as well. Random fact from 30 seconds ago, I can freestyle rap and beatbox, but
yeah, well, we'll have
I really don't think this is quite
we will want to test that
the
soon,
correct
so
surroundings for that skill set. Thanks, everyone.
I'd hand the mic back to him and get him to prove that personally, but there you go.
How are you going to top that? That's insane. Hello, everybody. My name's Neil Millett. I work on the marketing team at Reed.co.uk. I've been in digital recruitment for about 8 years. And my random fact from 30 seconds ago, which is probably more gangster than that if I do say so myself, is that I auditioned for the part of Ron Weasley in the first Harry Potter film. And I got down to the last 4, so humble brag. Yeah, there you go. Enjoy
I
that.
did say this would be the best ever panel session, didn't I?
So I've got a rapper and a ginger. Brilliant. Excellent. Okay. Yours is music. Okay, all right. I'll go. No. All right. I'll go. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Lisa Scales. I'm head of resourcing at Severn Trent. Random fact. I was asked to be on this panel at 1:29 for a bit of diversity. So a rose between 4 thorns, maybe.
I think that was more about the skill shortage, actually.
Yeah, probably. I don't have any other random fact other than, I was once deported from the States for suspected terrorism. Next.
Excellent. Okay, my name's James Saunders. I'm the CEO of Format. Format make careers website systems. Hopefully you all know that anyway. And my random fact is that I was once, I played drums, mimed drums, in a pop video featuring Lionel Blair. Lionel Blair.
Not Lionel Richie.
Not Lionel Richie, Lionel Blair.
My name's Ben. I'm the head of resourcing at Yodel. We sometimes deliver parcels or Nicky Laundry, either or. Interesting fact, actually, when I was 11, I randomly did Donald Duck voiceovers for Capital, Chris Tarrant Breakfast Show, and I'm not doing them today. You do beatbox, you do that, I'll do Daffy Duck.
Okay, so this is going to turn into more of a talent show than a panel, I think, but there we go. So, okay, the first question to the panel was Chris's question. So, your idea around skill shortage. Why do we want to talk about skill shortage? What is the question and what's the answer? So, what is it about skill shortage? What's the impact on particularly recruitment? As Lisa, you've got the microphone. What is the impact on Severn Trent specifically around skill shortage at the moment, if any?
Okay, so if I use Severn Trent as an example, and I'm sure you've all got your own examples in terms of geography and types of skills you're looking for. We're a regional water business, and you would argue that utilities isn't the most sexy business to join. So we have a branding issue in terms of attracting great talent, but also there's a regional focus in terms of we have the West Midlands, and we basically, our patch in terms of our 72,000 kilometres of water pipes that we look after and supply people with clean water with every day runs from Grimsby down to Gloucester. So it's a huge patch. We've got 8 million customers. And so in terms of our skill shortages, from a regional focus, our head office is in Coventry, and we have competition with the likes of Jaguar Land Rover, National Grid. We've got some huge businesses in the West Midlands that we are competing for similar talent. So although we need people to dig holes in roads to fix pipes, we also need engineers, we need chemical engineers, we need electrical engineers. We've got huge amounts of capital assets that we are creating, which require design people, project managers, program directors. So trying to attract that sort of skill out of the southeast, where there seems to be a concentration, is really difficult for us. And because we actually, although quite topical in the sense of Corbyn wanting to obviously, renationalise us, we are still a business that has our 8 million customers that we're trying to drive down the bills, and at the end of the day, we can't pay huge amounts of money for great talent. So we are a median payer, but we're expected to be upper quartile performance. So those are our... Oh, Neil, Peter's just given me the throat look.
Yeah, kind of.
Basically,
Okay,
shut
got
up,
your point.
Scales. Okay, so essentially, just to sort of give you a wrap-up of that, having a regional focus for a business that maybe wouldn't on the outset look that exciting, that's our challenge from a skills shortage point of view.
So, Nick, what did the survey say about skill shortages?
And if you look at the number of jobs posted on Read.co.uk, certainly for the first quarter of this year, we have seen that number shrink ever so slightly. I think it's 3%, which might not seem like a lot, but when you consider that we're in a climate whereby unemployment is at a record low, which is a good thing, I think we'd all agree that's a good thing, I do think the onus then becomes on recruiters to... That is arguably why the skill shortage is there, because people are in jobs, they're happy, they might be satisfied, so it's how do you get the most out of an audience that is satisfied where they're at. So the other part of this, and certainly for our point of view in terms of our ability to attract candidates to the site, job volume plays a significant role. So if that job volume isn't there, or it's not increasing, or it's not even sustaining, then that kind of has an impact on the reciprocal nature of more advertisements means more candidates, which means more applications. So the challenges are significant, and I don't feel that they're going to go away either.
Anybody else want to add to that on the panel? We've got an hour, we've got plenty of time to kill.
I guess I speak on behalf of my clients. So one of my clients is Empower in a very similar situation. Yeah, they're Southern-based, but they're a utilities company. And they have to, I certainly feel when looking at other clients we work with, they have to work harder on things like employer brand. They have to work harder in technology, making sure it's all joined up to make sure that they're just a little bit better, because they don't have the number of applicants of a Virgin or a Vodafone or somebody like that. So I do sympathise with sort of indirectly, it's my client rather than my business. But I think one of the other things, we talk very conceptually about skills shortages, don't we? But we forget that we are to some extent robbing Peter to pay Paul, aren't we? So for every new hire that I make, I'm robbing somebody of hopefully of somebody really good. And that's the whole irony of it, And for me, we waste a lot of effort, I guess, in almost assuming we're trying to create new talents and so forth. But actually, we're all going after the same people, and that's fundamentally the big problem. We all want the same good people.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the issues that we have at Yodel, I think it is down to the organisation to be quite responsible. So you see a lot of employer branding, EVPs, all the rest of it, that are so aspirational that we're actually getting lost in terms of, you might be a software developer in Shoreditch, wearing New Balance, eating avocado sandwiches or whatever, but there's still a large population of the UK that wants to put food on the table. So I think organisations need to kind of, realise that, we need to look at groups of people. It might be NEAT, it might be looking at your D&I strategy, and actually, okay, we have people that don't have skills. How can we get them to a place that they do have skills? And I know a lot of people talk about things like automation, AI, machine learning, all this kind of stuff. There are going to be pockets of people who in the next few years will be out of work, who have nothing else to go to. So for me, we need to look at those people, we need to retrain, reskill, and just making sure that opportunities are open for everyone. I mean, we talk about the war for talent, the war for skills, the war for whatever, but the last time I looked, there's still unemployed people. So how can we get those unemployed people into the right opportunities, regardless of social background, demographics, academia, whatever, and how can we really open the envelope up, I guess?
Add to that. Yeah, so just to add to the piece around about upskilling and actually looking at different ways of creating your own talent and growing your own as such, our new talent programs, we have done some quite radical things in terms of you can join our graduate program now without a degree. So all of a sudden we've opened up our graduate programs to people that are maybe in low social mobility areas, first generation. We do first generation grads, but we also do people that don't have a degree. And this has obviously given us an avenue where actually somebody just hasn't had the opportunity to become talented versus We're all trying to, as James said, we're all trying to sort of swim in the same pools. But actually, if you take a longer term strategy and look at your business 5 years out and understand that actually you've got an apprentice, we've had 2 apprentices start, and I love this, so I will tell the story. We've got 2 apprentices start in our general counsel, in our legal team, and they're going to do a 7-year apprentice with us, and they will qualify as solicitors when they're 25. They're 17 years old, and 19 years old, and they have 7 years work experience working for a FTSE 100 business, and they're qualified solicitors. So, that to me is about growing your own talent. And I appreciate there are some roles we can't put somebody that doesn't understand about electrical engineering onto one of our capital assets. There's still that issue. But there is a real opportunity for all of us to grow our own.
Does anybody in the audience want to ask a question either around skill shortage or anything else before we move to something else? No. Okay.
Can I just make a point there about the opportunity that skills shortages
Yeah, please do, because I've got no idea what the next question's going to be.
And, we've seen a lot of change in the workplace. If we're doing this event 5 years ago, we'd all be wearing suits and, clocking in, clocking out, and God knows what would be going on. And actually, what it's forcing is that the organisations are becoming more progressive. Home working is prevalent, flexible working is more prevalent. I know there's a downside to that, I do understand that, but equally, organisations have to change, and they're, really the balance of power has switched. So, obviously from an organisational perspective, I find it as hard to hire people as you guys do, really. We're all after the same A players. But it's forced me to be a more progressive and run a more progressive organisation.
Yeah, and something else I want to add, I think, obviously we've got personnel, we have human resources, but I think now the big one is going to be employment experience, and really kind of making, because you go on a company website and yeah, we're flexible, we're innovative, but you have to be in the office 40 hours a week, we're not that flex. So I think now organisations really, instead of just looking at recruiting, a lot of it's around, kind of lowering attrition, improving retention, and actually, doing away with titles like millennials, Gen X, Gen Y. We're all human beings, and as long as we're treated fairly well, we'll put in a good day's graft. So I think it's almost in this age of tech, just going back to basics in terms of, engagement, experience, and just kind of looking after people, really.
Okay, we have a question from the audience, so I'll just hand the mic over and hopefully be switched on by the time it arrives. Good luck.
Hi. I just wanted to go back to Severn Trent. So you mentioned about the FTSE 100 being part of that. How important do you think it is to attract talent to have those types of badges? Do you find that had a massive impact on your organisation?
Okay, so in terms of the fact that it's a regional business, it does help in the sense of, in terms of our senior hires, there's definitely, it's an easier conversation in terms of, somebody wants to work for a FTSE 100 business, they don't actually have to work in the city. So there is an advantage, but actually for somebody that works in our call centre, somebody that digs holes and fixes pipes, does it really matter? Not. No. So it's all about culture and it's about the experience. And I think, Ben, you made a really good point about the employee experience. And actually something that we're currently looking at is how do we turn our workforce into its own university so that we can actually leverage the apprentice levy and actually retain people. So we may have somebody that works in our call centre who actually in 5 years' time could be going on to a diploma and doing data science. So it's about turning those skills. All of a sudden, you've got a really engaged worker in a naturally high attrition role who will stay with the business and ultimately be in a skilled role that we will need in the future. Did that answer the question?
Just out of interest, is anyone else here looking or striving for that accreditation? Because perhaps you might be able to share with the rest of the group why it is that you're striving for and the kind of the benefits you hope to have. Or on the other side of it, does anyone feel negatively about it and just feels like they want to sound off on why that might be? There you go, bounce it back to the audience.
So how many people here have sort of control of their apprentice levy utilisation? Hands up. You're going to have to put your hands up higher. I can't see. Yeah, so
Not many.
No, and it's an interesting one actually. You know, we only actually have this year 22% utilisation. It's quite cumbersome to deal with. It's not the easiest thing. I think it's branded in the wrong way. But there's certainly an opportunity, especially for a large employer that's paying a lot into it, to really use that in terms of how we can make our skill shortages slightly less risky.
Okay, so going back to skill shortages, workforce productivity has declined over the last 20 years, and workforce productivity is predicted to continue to decline for another 20 years. Have we got a skill shortage issue, or have we got a productivity issue? And if it's actually a productivity issue, which is factual, not just my opinion, it's evidence-based, surely we've got a productivity issue, not a skill shortage issue. Nick, you come from a technology point of view. Have you got a rap answer for us, or have you got an automation answer for us? Passing that microphone along to the man that was almost asleep at the end there.
Wide awake, Peter. I think from a productivity perspective, then, you know, we're here at a technology exhibition, and certainly technology can very much help with productivity. But I think the key to it is understanding why that productivity is dropping. You know, we were speaking earlier about flexible working arrangements, people working a lot more from home now, which is absolutely great, and our company believes in that as well. But is that connected to productivity issues at all? If people are working from home, are they as productive in the office? So I think key to it is understanding where those the reasons for that decline.
I think there's always an assumption that AI and increased automation is going to have an impact on productivity. But so we did a piece of research last year which suggests that the majority of the workforce knows that it's coming and isn't actually afraid of it, and actually feels that AI and automation is going to help shift the focus away from doing the kind of more mundane chores that take up a lot of time and allow us to focus more strategically. And certainly in areas where people power is a necessity. And you see it in terms of there's still online versions of doctors, let's say. In those industries where care is needed, people will be at the core of all that. But there's instances in every single customer service, whether it be doctors or otherwise, that will need that bit of human care and that human touch, which is what we found really interesting. So, I don't know, there's always a bit of fear-mongering around AI automation in terms of productivity, but certainly from what we've seen, it's something that candidates are anticipating and they're not afraid of it too.
Surely, Ben, you've got self-driving delivery vehicles coming, haven't you? That will solve your driver shortage.
As I said in the introduction, we've got to start delivering parcels and then we can move on to automation. No, I think, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I've kind of got a bit of a left field view of this. So I think if you look at the world now, you know, politically, from an economic perspective, you've got the B word, you've got politics, all the rest of it, you know, life is a lot more difficult now, and I think organisations are still playing catch up just in regards to welfare. I'll go back to that experience perspective. And I think, you know, for whatever reason, you know, maybe people are getting a little bit switched off by work, and I think it's down to the organisations to engage more, look at kind of tasks. I know Johnny Campbell a couple of weeks ago said kind of the war for skills. You know, are people being used correctly? Are the skills being utilised? And maybe that is the reason why, although there is a skills shortage, as you said, maybe that is why productivity is a little bit down. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I also think that we make things so complex, and actually the larger the organisation, the more complex it is to do something. We get technology that strangles us versus actually helps us do our jobs in a more efficient way. So, you know, we as human beings are still catching up with the technology that's almost, you know, slightly out of date. But to try and change that sort of technology in a business that's got scale and is working at pace, it's a really hard thing to do. But I do think we do make a hash of it sometimes, and I think that's where productivity definitely decreases.
So you're saying the technology has slowed us down in some cases?
Yeah, I do believe that, because if you look actually at the recruitment agency world, and you look at, you know, 20 years ago, dare I say it, when I was working in agency land, just as productive then, as an agent is now that has all this technology at their fingertips. So you would argue that actually, has it helped? Yeah, you've probably got a better audit trail, but that's about it.
I agree with Lisa about how everything's got so much more complicated. But I also think people don't really understand. I mean, you can talk about productivity, but they don't really understand the results that they actually need. Do organisations, they might strategically at the top level understand where they're heading, but where do they at the divisional or even the team or even the person level? What are the three things that are going to give you that leverage, that 80-20 leverage? And it's funny you talk about recruitment consultancies, because a lot of them are KPI-driven businesses, and people think about KPIs as sales KPIs, aren't they? Because they're really evil and that sort of thing. But actually, in my experience, that shouldn't be the case. They are the little golden nuggets. They're the things that really give you that leverage. And if you focus on those KPIs, you will achieve the outcomes that you want. But I don't think people look for that. You know, they'll just say, let's hire another person. So I think the point you're making, Peter, is right. Yeah, we you know, and there was also the story, wasn't there, about somebody, the lawyers training with the organisation and things like that. We've just hired a new art director, and so the hiring manager came up to me and said, "Oh, found this person who's brilliant, fantastic, but she used to work in banking for the first 6 years of her career." And I was like, "Well, that's brilliant." And they said, "No, it's terrible, isn't it? Because obviously, you know, they don't know what they want to do, and you know." And I said, "Well, what is it we want them to do? We want them to be an art director. It's kind of like hardwired, isn't it? Being creative and stuff. I think it's wonderful having this, you know, a commercial experience coming into the, you know, and that's an asset, not a liability." So yes, I think there is a you know, problem with productivity, not necessarily to do with KPIs, although so many businesses aren't KPI-driven businesses. Some people are in the wrong job, but also there aren't enough good people around.
Okay, so going back to that point, I've got a question. Here you go. Microphone on, please.
Hiya, I'm Jo. I work for a non-for-profit, and it's just something on what you said, James, about transferable skills. I know it was a manager that came to you. One of my problems that I have, and I don't know if you have the same, is the hiring managers will have their job description and they're very specific. I need this person with X, Y, Z skills. Obviously, there's a talent shortage. So I find people with transferable skills that would be fabulous, but they're like, well, they don't have the X, Y, Z skills. So I'm just wondering if you come across that with your hiring managers and how you manage that change in them.
I mean, I don't run a large organisation, but I think what you say, they've got to be flexible, right? You know, I mean, you know, there's a list of 10 things that you want when you hire anybody, and if there are 7 or 8, they've got to be in the running potentially. And I know it's very. I think it's in your. Sorry, who do you work for?
Together Trust, we're a children's charity.
Okay,
so even I could give them 9 out of the 10 and they'll be like, nope, they don't have that one skill, they haven't got purple hair, it's not happening.
So they don't hire the person.
And in my days of working in recruitment, I would say, okay, have them for free, have them as a temp, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sure this person will work, but we can't do that here. So I just want to know how you manage that.
Well, yeah, Lisa, you run a larger organisation.
Yeah, and I think this is there's an education piece, and there is a getting buy-in from the board. Actually, we need to change the way that we are attracting and recruiting talent, and I'm going to have to push back really hard with this hiring manager, and having the strength to do that and go, actually, we're the recruitment experts. And it's really interesting because what I find in our businesses is that because it's about people, everybody's an expert because they're a person. This is about education. This is about asking somebody to trust and get some data around the fact that you're doing a good job. But I really would push quite hard and escalate it if they are not taking the best talent. And the best talent doesn't necessarily be the person with the words on the CV.
The question?
Sorry, I was just very quickly going to add to that. And I think one of the dangers is that it is a paper CV. A hiring manager will look at a CV and they'll be analysing both the work experience and the skill set. And unless they see those exact skills listed and the exact experience they want, they're not actually looking at the candidate any further, and they're automatically rejecting them. Starting to see a slight change. There's video in applications now, and I'm not suggesting that video is correct for all types of roles. but it can be very useful in bringing that process forward. And when a hiring manager is engaging and feeding back on a video of an individual, it often can help with that skill shortage area. Good example of it, a large car retailer, they recruit car salesmen. And they actually recruit centrally for all of their franchises throughout the UK. And each franchise manager, they wouldn't look at a CV unless that person had previous car sales experience. But what the recruitment team now do is they'll actually ask the candidate in 60 seconds to sell their own car to the hiring manager. The hiring managers have a lot more fun reviewing applications, but secondly, they can quickly identify individuals that wouldn't have been considered, otherwise, and they're managing now to fill those gaps. So I'm certainly not suggesting that video is appropriate in all recruitment situations, but it can certainly have its benefits.
Yeah, and for myself, it was more of a case, so I work in a similar industry in healthcare, and we're introducing video interviewing because it's hard skills and soft skills that the business don't understand the difference. We obviously know competencies exist, but it's that understanding from a hiring manager's point of view of actually what is either. What is also, then you can work out what's essential, what's desirable from that job description. From a person-centred point of view, you want to look at somebody and think, you could look after my grandma, that kind of attitude towards a support worker. So we're bringing in asking questions to look at specific soft skills instead of the competencies. As you've got 6 months experience of X, Y and Z, so just wanted to add that in really.
Okay, so going back to the point you made earlier around productivity and skill shortages, and the fact that hiring managers are a bit resistant to change. Whilst you're trying to deliver parcels, Ben, not you personally, obviously, but whilst Yodel are trying to deliver parcels probably on behalf of Amazon, whilst you're busy arguing with line managers... Sorry?
Margins are too low.
But whilst you're busy trying to get your operation right, aren't the likes of Amazon just saying, yeah, you bureaucratic companies who've got internal cultural issues and line managers who won't accept what are probably good candidates, we'll just get parcels delivered with drones and driverless vehicles. And actually, if you don't change, which most companies won't change because it's death of 1,000 cuts, you will be disrupted and you'll go down the same route as Kodak and Toys R Us. And it's actually nothing to do with a skills shortage, it's actually a human cultural issue. Is that not the case? And actually, you're going to be disrupted if you don't change.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you look at Amazon, they do 12-hour delivery. We're going to be kicking off 24-hour delivery. Toys R Us, Woolies, if there's anybody here who remembers Woolies. The reason why these organisations have gone west is pretty much our fault. We want everything tomorrow, today. And I hate to say it, but organisations are looking to make more profit, improve efficiencies, and we're almost like the victims of our own success. And if you look at a company like Yodel, we're looking at automation in a lot of our distribution centres. We're going through at the moment, probably about 150 people will be put at risk. And I hate to say it, but a lot of organisations are going through that. And that's why I said going back earlier, it's all good and well for the consumer wanting their Amazon Echo within 12 hours or whatever, but it will have an impact on the economy and the wider people. So, I think it's kind of our fault. So, without getting too, depressive or whatever.
So is it more of a cultural issue than a skill shortage issue then? Go on, give her the microphone. You know she wants to talk. You know she's in charge up there.
Say that again, sorry.
Give her the microphone. Is it more of a cultural issue than a skill shortage issue? Because you said earlier,
I don't think
you put people forward to line manager, and you as a recruiter, you're the expert, and you'll say, look, this person can do the job, and the line manager's going, no. It's like pass the parcel here.
I'm going to rant for about 30 seconds, so bear with. I still think that recruiters are naff when it comes to dealing with hiring managers. People talk about diversity and equality, which it's not just the right thing to do from a human perspective. It makes commercial sense. But recruiters still aren't doing enough. They're not using data. They're being emotive. And I hate to say it, but going back to your question there, A lot of the job boards, going back to what Lisa said, a lot of the job boards now will actually offer tons of data to go to a hiring manager. Look, I know that you're looking for a software developer. Reed getting excited. You know, I know that you're looking for a software developer who can speak 20 languages, but we're based in Wigan. You know, so we need to be quite realistic. So personally, I think it is a cultural thing. And recruiters, without sounding too high-horsey, we need to start in our crust and actually managing our hiring managers.
And certainly there has been an increase in the demand in terms of tooling recruiters with the information they need. And it's not just Reed.co.uk, it'll be the other job boards that you see here today. And so there's actually you have access to suites of information. And it's, I don't know, there's the challenge with that is how do you avoid analysis paralysis and how do you boil it down to the statistics and the conversion rates that really matter. But certainly if it's a case of you're not aware that you have this data, it's worth talking to your suppliers that you work with because a lot of that data will be made available to you. And certainly you'll find that your suppliers will help you create the stories that you need to get your point across because ultimately for suppliers, there's potential investment further down the line for them too. But ultimately we just want to be able to tool you guys with the data that you need to drive the decisions, whether it be from hiring managers or from senior decision makers too.
And I think the point about recruiters with hiring managers is a very important one. As a recruiter, you should be managing that relationship with the hiring manager, and you should be seen as a trusted advisor. And that doesn't happen quickly. You need to become that. And once you do become a trusted advisor with that hiring manager community, then they're more open to listen and really trust you to put candidates in front of them that perhaps might have some of those skills missing from the CVs. So I totally agree with you there that the recruiter needs to do more.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just about, when I mentioned the education piece, it's not just about saying to a hiring manager, look, you know, you're only going to get 3 CVs and you need to see these people, etc. This is about actually creating the internal communication story around the skills shortage. And actually, as a business, we have a people resilience risk. So actually, it's not just about the recruitment function and the wider HR function to take responsibility for that. So hiring managers need to be better leaders and retain their talent. And similarly, they need to, you know, think far more left field in terms of how we're going to solve this problem collectively and not just see it as recruitment's fault. And I would rather have the conversation with the hiring manager in how are we going to tackle this talent challenge that you have, as opposed to scuttling back to the recruitment department and going, we need to find more CVs. And that's what happens now. And the reality is that we as recruitment leaders need to tool up and gear up our recruiters to make sure that they have those really quite face-on conversations and actually broader business conversations around talent shortage.
The other thing I was going to add, without kind of having a recruiter bashing session, because I'm one myself, but I think we probably don't help ourselves with metrics. So everybody uses the old time to hire, cost per hire. They were really, really good 35 years ago. We need to be looking now at metrics such as what is it costing the business to have these vacancies open? How, if we're a sales organisation? Yeah, exactly, yeah. Empty seat. God, you can tell she's got more experience. Yeah.
Well, I'm asking another question, but I just want to comment on, not that the audience will be kind of focused on this now, but just watch how the different panellists hold the microphone. You can see who the rapper is, the way they hold the microphone. So it's quite interesting from back here. So they'll be watching you now, particularly Nick, because he's going to do a rap at the end, I hope. So we've got a question at the front here. Let's see how you hold the microphone.
Hi, my name's Jade. I work for Eon, so competitor of one of your clients. My question's just around contractors. So I know that you talk about skill shortages, but I know that so my partner actually works within the water industry, and I know a lot of his sort of peers have gone on to contract for the companies that they've just left because of, you know, you get the pay increase. So I just want to get a perspective on, do you think contractors maybe control a bit more of the skill shortages in terms of going in and then working for the companies on that aspect? Sorry.
Okay, so we have sort of various different types of contractors in our business. So we've got our third-party supply chain, which are, doing the more engineering work and actually out in our field operations. But then, of course, we've got our contractors that are primarily head office based and are in, we've got a lot of contractors in technology. We have a massive issue with regards to trying to get these guys to convert to a permanent role. At the end of the day, we are literally feeding the beast. And we have to have them because we've got some challenges around our digital projects. But I've got a bit of a bugbear about it because I don't believe it's fair that somebody's sitting there as an engaged permanent employee and they've got somebody with maybe even lesser skill than them sitting there on a day rate, earning a lot of money and really not engaged, and that knowledge could walk out of our business. So again, from my risk register from People Resilience, it's huge. In terms of skill shortages, yes, they can plug a gap. The problem is the business is lazy and they stay in that gap. And I will not tell you the longest tenure of one of our contractors because I would cry, literally.
Sorry, can I just ask why you see that as a risk, having contractors in your business? Because all the info says that they're going to make up X percentage of our population by 2050 or whatever it is. And is that not a mindset issue that we need to change and recognise them actually as a positive talent resource?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I do agree with you in terms of our, there's a lot of talk about coming over the hill, the gig economy. We're not there yet, and our mindset is fairly flexible with contractors, given the amount we've got in our business. My issue is that there is knowledge that could walk out of our business fairly quickly and easily.
Sorry, microphone, here you go. Microphone.
So all our employees are on 3 months plus. So our seniors are on 6 months, our exec are on a year. So there's plenty of time to obviously replace that, and a contractor generally can pretty much walk out straight away. And I understand what you're saying with regards to our sort of attitude towards it. I think we as an organisation need to get better at managing that.
I think there's a big difference between somebody earning 500 quid a day as an IT.NET developer and somebody who's delivering parcels, for example. Yeah. Although, yeah. So, to say that, class them all as contract or gig economy, that's misleading. I think the smart organisations that I've seen use contracts, and, what Lisa says is right. They become embedded, but they use contractors as a pressure valve. Smart use of contractors can really make organisations more profitable for peaks and troughs and work, without a doubt. But it's up to the employer as to whether they become institutionalised or not. When does the pressure valve stop and become a permanent requirement? And then have you got the bottle then to say, well, look, I know you've been here 6 months, but we're not prepared to work under your terms. We need somebody permanent. And in a skills-short marketplace, I understand that you end up paying the day rate, don't you? But that's down to the organisation. It's not down to the individual in the contract position.
And I think something else as well, if IR35 comes into the private world, as it has in the public, that will rip it up, to be honest with you. And coming from a university last year, hiring managers have a lot of stuff to do with IR35, so will the whole contractor model change if IR35 comes over? Might do, might not, don't know, but that is a fair point, to be fair.
But isn't there an issue here that talent acquisition is thinking tactically and they're not really being strategic enough? They're not the business, and let's say it has to be led from a talent acquisition point of view. You need to go, we're going to change what we produce from producing hires. We're actually going to produce information and business impact. And actually, whether we've got a number of contractors, whether we're outsourcing our delivery to drones or whatever, surely talent acquisition should be focusing more towards workforce delivery or productivity issues. And I know that might sound a bit too far-fetched, but you've got to start on a journey and actually move away from this. We need to hire somebody. Move away from this. We can't keep contractors too long. Yes, the IR35 issues and the contractor model will change, but the gig economy is getting bigger and bigger. Surely talent acquisition's role is to say, we need to help the business get the stuff done that delivers to the customer. That is what we should be doing as talent acquisition, and move away from this real tactical, transactional, hiring people?
I mean, I totally agree with that. But
Thank you.
I do. But unfortunately, the first line in the CEO handbook is your people are your greatest asset. You know, Jim Collins, good to great. You know, you get the right people on the bus, you can drive it anywhere. Okay, so that's how to be a CEO. But nobody actually acts like that, in my experience. The level of influence of senior talent people in organisations is nowhere near the level of influence of marketing or the CIO or something like that, in my experience. If we look at the oil industry at the moment, here's an industry that's quite depressed, quite recessive, but actually will turn around in the next 2 or 3 years. However, people always think short term in terms of oil because it's about short term profit, and that's what drives it. It's about stock market price. If they were sensible, they'd be investing in the projects. They would have never stopped investing in the projects because at the end of the day, we all need petrol for the car, or will do for the foreseeable future. But unfortunately, the economics drives that.
I mean, a very simple test would be a show of hands here who uses workforce planning or forecasting. Yeah. What's that, a third of the room? I mean, and you know, how many boards in the UK have weekly resourcing or TA facts, figures? You know, I mean, I think, well, you would. But, I mean, you know, we talk about technology, we talk about this, talk about that, but how many organisations know how many hires we're going to need in 3, 6, 9 months? You can't look at all this cool, sexy stuff here if you don't know how many people you hire.
Yeah, and I think your statement with regards to talent acquisition being slightly tactical and not strategic enough and looking over the hill and seeing what's coming. As you'll know, Jade, our industries work in AMPs, so we work in 5-year stretches. So actually we do know what's coming over the hill, and our asset creation takes so long that, you know, building pipes and God knows what. So I think it's quite a broad statement to say that we are being tactical. I think there are some businesses out there that are strategic, and there are businesses out there that look at the mix of third-party supply, their permanent workforce, their contingent workforce, and I do believe you need to have a mix. You also need some natural attrition in your own business. So I think talent acquisition gets a bit of a beating for being tactical. The business drives that tactic, you know, because they're quite reactionary. And, you know, my finger goes back out to the business and I push for people plans from them constantly. And that's what we should all be doing so that we can actually see what's coming down the pipe. Forgive the pun.
The water pipe, no doubt. Anybody else want to try that? Any questions yet at the moment? Any questions from the audience to our illustrious panel? Oh, we've got a question. I was about to ask who would like to see Nick rap. I bet we would have got a few hands in the air for that one, but we're working on it. No, go on, you ask your question because Nick is getting ready. You can see him warming up at the end there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I read an article recently about someone in America using Tinder for recruitment. So I just didn't know if there was any kind of out there things that you guys have done to try and plug those, you know, get the people in and get, you know, plug those gaps.
Okay, I can categorically say that it's not Tinder that we have used as an attraction channel, but I think I'll pass it over to an expert.
It's very generous of you. What we've had to, well, not on Tinder, no, definitely not. I think this is digging the hole. The really interesting bits and pieces that we've seen just from some desktop research when we're creating our presentations are the exciting things that people are doing regarding the interview process. I think there's been a real focus on enhancing your interview processes and understanding they're part of the candidate experience into your business. And if you can do real quirky, innovative, I don't know, you don't want to call them stunts, but things that draw candidates in at an early stage. Therefore, even if they're unsuccessful, they'll still talk about that amongst their peers, and the benefits of having an engaging interview process, regardless of whether you're successful or not, is that kind of goodwill and that gesture. And I think it's some of the research that we did. I don't know if you know, we do research. 25% of all of the people that apply for your vacancies will then go on to follow your brand. So you get a chance of, you don't just kind of burn an application off the back of one process. You engage with people and they might then come back and revisit you. So some of the quirkier things, if I can finally get around to answering your question. The use of VR, and we've got it over our stand. That's not a cheap plug, I promise you. I found that quite interesting. And there's use of escape rooms as well. People are using escape rooms, particularly among younger audiences, because they know that it's a hook to get people engaged. But what's really interesting is despite all these new mediums and methods that are out there, candidates still really value that face-to-face interview time with their hiring manager and the resourcer. So I think we shouldn't lose sight, and it's great to have these tactics whereby they're quirky and engaging and they make your brand cool, for want of a better term. People still value people time. So those are some of the quirky things that people might be doing.
I think a lot of people kind of talk about tech now, obviously machine learning, AI, even though it doesn't properly exist. I'll always say that if you can use any bit of technology that gives you more time to speak to candidates, it's a winner. I know it sounds quite simple, but if whether it's a chat bot, whether it's using more, whatever it is. I think at the end of the day we get kind of wrapped up in tech and innovation, and some of the best things that I've seen work are probably the most simple. So
And seriously, don't underestimate still using text messages. It still gets the highest response and conversion in terms of response. So, back to basics. There's lots of sexy tech out there, and there's lots of people going, yeah, swipe left, and they'll be your next hire. But actually
Thought left was reject, isn't it?
Who knows? You clearly do. I just think that we lose sight of exactly what Ben and Neil have said about candidate experience, and actually treat people how you want to be treated. Yeah.
Okay, so...
Sorry, just really quickly to add to that, going back to basics as well, is that we need to remember that the best candidates aren't looking to move. They're not candidates, they're not looking for a job. One of the ways we approached that when I worked at Essex County Council around social care, we'd actually hold CPD days, continued professional development for social care, and we'd arrange to have keynote speakers at those events in order to attract the right audience into Essex and learn more about the organisation, with the long-term viewpoint of being able to turn them into candidates. And I think that's really, really important, is that you view your audience and, most importantly, your customers as candidates for the future. And it's about that long-term conversion.
Okay, for final question to you, and as you've got the microphone, Lisa, you can have this first. If there was one thing that you could wave a magic wand and fix within your resourcing business, what's that one thing that you would choose to fix to be exactly as you want it that would actually have the biggest business impact? And the business just accepted your recommendation.
I think probably, my function runs from new talent right up to exec, and I think a single source of data and truth would be great. We've got some fairly disparate systems, so trying to consolidate those and make sense of them so we can actually turn it into data that we can inform the business, that would be great. I'm also just going to say the word blockchain, because it hasn't been mentioned, and Ben said he would buy a coffee for anybody that mentioned it. Boom.
So, blockchain. No, my number one thing would be about interviewing, because I still think there are problems around requirements and people being interviewed properly, and that lady over there, in terms of seeing the recruiter as almost like the person you need to lean on to get the hire done rather than part of the process. And actually, if we all interview better and our retention was higher, then we'd have less of a problem with talent.
I would say that I think hiring managers and organisations need to give as much thought into their employer brand as their consumer brand. So Yodel is a perfect example. We will stress if Mrs. Jones doesn't get her bouquet of flowers, but yet we'll happily give a candidate the worst candidate experience ever. And I think with the likes of social media, obviously Snap-a-Book, First Chat, all this kind of jazz, employer brands, consumer brands, corporate brands are all merged into one. So I think if somebody has a bad experience in one, it will impact the other. So I think it's just kind of remembering now that brand is not just you or her or us, it's kind of the whole cycle kind of thing.
it's not so much to do with resourcing, but it's more to do with candidate mindset. For us, one of the big challenges that we've got, that we feel, is the mindset that university is still the go-to route for getting access to your first role. 50% of 3,000 odd 16 to 24-year-olds that we polled suggested as such, and we thought that score might be a little lower. And you consider the role of the apprenticeship levy, it's maybe not had the impact, and I think it's because it lacks clarity for recruiters to really take advantage of. So we'll probably see that start to become a factor more. 10% of individuals are happy to go straight to work, and it's how do we get in front of those people is going to be key. And there's still this element of 20% of all of those 16 to 24-year-olds just simply didn't know what it is they wanted to do yet. So I guess for us, it's just change that mindset that university is the only way to get into a well-paid career and move yourself up the chain quicker, because there's a plethora of opportunities out there. So perhaps there's an educational piece, not just from us as recruiters or from services like a Read.co.uk, but perhaps some support from the government it wouldn't go amiss either.
Nick, do you want to have the final word, because we are now pretty much out of time?
Yeah, just two really quick key points. I think any technology that allows the recruiter, as we mentioned earlier, to spend more time talking and engaging with candidates is critical. And then we also need to about how to consider the market. This is going to be a long-term problem, so we need to think about education. We also need to think about rehabilitation. It's not something we've spoken about at all today, but if I'm a young person and I make a mistake and perhaps I end up in prison or a young offenders institution, then surely that time whilst I'm in that institution should be focused on getting me job ready and skilled. A lot of people make mistakes earlier in their life, and that at the moment can affect them for the rest of their career, and employers won't give those individuals a look. But again, there's another untapped and undeveloped market there.
Okay, thank you very much, panel. Thank you very much, audience. You've been a wonderful audience, great questions, etc.
And obviously, if anybody wants to come and work for Severn Trent, please do.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Panel,